Collins clapped Marco Torres on the shoulder, grinning fiercely. Hell of a job with those exosuit mods, Torres. I felt like I could take on a goddamn tsunami by the end there. Torres laughed, his eyes still gleaming with adrenaline. Just applied a little human ingenuity, boss. These ET suits aren't built for finesse, but we sure as hell showed 'em what a little elbow grease and on-the-fly engineering can do. Ava Perez, her exobiologist mind already whirring, nodded thoughtfully. The joint configurations were based on bipedal species, but clearly not optimized for human biomechanics. Once we started tweaking the leverages and load distributions, we turned a one-size-fits-all rig into a goddamn bespoke machine. Kenji Sato finished, slapping his exosuit affectionately. Felt like this baby was reading my mind by the end. Naomi Okoye, ever the strategist, held up a warning hand. Let's not get cocky. That was just the first event. And you can bet the Zeta-level pissed we just made some very powerful enemies. They'll be gunning for us extra hard now. Lena Ivanov nodded grimly, her eyes scanning the agitated crowd. Duh. We showed them we're not just monkeys who lucked into spaceflight, that we can compete even with a technological handicap. And if there's one thing I know about bullies, they hate it when the underdog bites back. Collins looked at his crew, pride surging in his chest. They'd come so far from the early days of the ESS Magellan, from a ragtag bunch of dreamers and misfits to a tight-knit unit forged in the crucible of deep space. Now here they were, staring down the best the galaxy had to offer, and not backing down an inch. He looked each of his crew in the eye, his gaze unwavering. It's not going to be easy. They're going to throw everything they've got at us and then some. But we've faced long odds before, and we've always found a way. So let's get out there and show them what crazy, stubborn, ingenious monkeys we really are. Hoorah! Hoorah! The crew chorused, their voices ringing with willpower. But first, he needed to train, to hone his already formidable abilities to a razor's edge. For the humans had shown a spark of potential, and he would not underestimate them again. The arena transformed, gravity fading away as the contestants found themselves suspended in a vast, ethereal space. Holographic obstacles shimmered into existence, forming an intricate labyrinth that defied conventional physics. What the hell is this? Kenji Sato muttered, spinning slowly as he tried to grab onto a non-existent handhold. Naomi Okoye's eyes darted across the shifting landscape, her mind racing. It's a zero-G obstacle course, she said, her voice taut with concentration. But look at those patterns. They're not random. As alien competitors glided effortlessly through the course, the humans fumbled and crashed into invisible barriers. Collins gritted his teeth, fighting down a wave of nausea as he ricocheted off another unseen wall. Great, Marco Torres groaned. So we're getting our asses kicked by calculus? But Naomi was already in motion, her fingers tracing invisible patterns in the air. Not just calculus, quantum mechanics, string theory. It's beautiful, really. And if I'm right... She pushed off, gliding through a seemingly solid barrier that parted like smoke at her touch. The alien spectators buzzed with surprise. Holy shit, Lena Ivanov whispered. How'd you do that? Naomi grinned, the thrill of discovery lighting up her face. The math tells us where the gaps are. Follow my lead. In his private box, Kari leaned forward, his multifaceted eyes narrowing. Fascinating, he murmured. They shouldn't be able to grasp those concepts so quickly. As the humans progressed through the course, alien spectators watched with growing interest. Murmurs of disbelief rippled through the crowd as the primitive Earthlings navigated puzzles that had baffled even some of the more advanced species. Rhaegor, the Ladosian champion, clenched his massive fists as he watched the humans' progress on a view screen. Impossible, he snarled. They must be cheating somehow. But there was no denying the evidence before their eyes. The humans were adapting, learning, pushing themselves beyond their perceived limitations. And as they cleared the final obstacle, a cheer went up from a small but growing section of the crowd. As the adrenaline faded, the reality of their situation began to sink in. They had survived another event, true, but the Galactic Games were a long way to go. And with each success, the humans were drawing more attention, both positive and negative, from the powerful forces that shaped this vast alien cosmos. The arena shimmered, preparing to transform for the next challenge. Collins squared his shoulders, meeting the eyes of each of his crewmates. No words were needed. They all knew the stakes. Whatever came next, they would face it together. As the humans rifled through their gear, Ava Perez's brow furrowed. She held up a water container, sniffing cautiously. "Frank, something's off here." Collins moved closer, examining the supplies. A faint, acrid smell wafted from the food packs. "Contaminated," he growled, tossing the tainted rations aside. As Ava set to work, Collins inspected their equipment. His hands froze on a climbing harness, fingers tracing a nearly invisible fray in the fabric. "Sabotage," he muttered, cold anger settling in his gut. Lena Ivanov's eyes narrowed. "Those Zarthan bastards," she hissed. "They're not content to beat us fairly." Collins nodded grimly. "We need to be on our guard. Check everything twice." The team pushed forward, hyper-vigilant of their surroundings. Ava's expertise kept them nourished with alien substitutes for their compromised supplies. They navigated treacherous terrain, overcoming obstacles that seemed designed to exploit human weaknesses. As they neared the trial's end, a shadow fell over them. Reger, the Ladosian champion, stood atop a rocky outcropping, his massive form silhouetted against the alien sky. "Still alive, primitives?" he called down, voice dripping with contempt. "Why not spare yourselves further humiliation and withdraw now?" Reger's eyes flashed with scarcely controlled rage. He leapt down, landing with ground-shaking force mere feet from Collins. "You dare?" he snarled, looming over the human. "You have no place here. No right to challenge your betters." With a roar of frustration, Reger lashed out. His massive fist connected with Collins's jaw, sending the human flying. Chaos erupted as the rest of the team rushed to Collins' aid. As they watched their comrade being whisked away for treatment, a somber silence fell over the team. The reality of their situation hit home with brutal clarity. This was no longer just a competition. It was a fight for survival, with galactic forces arrayed against them. Collins looked at each of his crew in turn, seeing commitment etched on every face. "Now," he said, straightening up, "now we show these Zarthan bastards what happens when you back humans into a corner." The team gathered close, solidarity evident in every tense muscle and clenched jaw. As they prepared for the next trial, none of them noticed the calculating gaze of Empress Xyloth watching from afar, or the seeds of change their actions were planting throughout the gathered civilizations. The human team huddled together in their quarters, the weight of recent events hanging heavy in the air. Kenji Sato lay on a makeshift cot, his chest wrapped tightly in bandages. Each labored breath was a stark reminder of Reger's brutality. Sato managed a weak smile. "Been better, boss, but I'll live." A chime echoed through the room, startling the group. An alien face materialized on the comm screen, regal, insectoid features framed by an ornate headdress. "Greetings, Earthlings," the alien's melodious voice filled the room. "I am Empress Xyloth of the Vinsa Empire. Your presence is requested for an urgent matter." Collins exchanged wary glances with his team. "And if we refuse?" Xyloth's compound eyes glimmered. "Then you forfeit a chance to learn why your efforts have been impeded." Minutes later, the humans found themselves in a luxurious chamber, face to face with the imposing Empress. Xyloth's aide, Kari, hovered nearby, multifaceted eyes darting between the two groups. "You've been sabotaged," Xyloth stated bluntly. "The Zarthan Collective fears your potential. They seek to eliminate you from the games by any means necessary." Lena Ivanov's fists clenched. "We knew something was off, but this—" Xyloth's mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement. A fair competition, for one, and perhaps an opportunity for mutual benefit. Marco Torres surveyed the salvage, a manic grin spreading across his face. "Oh man, this is going to be fun." As the humans set to work, Kari's presence proved invaluable. Her subtle interventions thwarted numerous Zarthan attempts at sabotage, a weakened strut here, a faulty power coupling there. "She ain't pretty, but she'll dance circles around those Zarthan death traps." All right, people, let's show them what we can do. Their ship darted and wove through the chaos, while all around them, alien vessels met spectacular ends. A Zarthan cruiser disintegrated under the impact of a massive asteroid, its crew barely escaping in time. When they emerged on the other side, battered but triumphant, a hush fell over the arena. Then from the first one's section, a cheer erupted. It spread like wildfire, drowning out the outraged howls of Zarthan loyalists. In the uproar, Collins caught sight of Rhaegar. The Ladoshan's face contorted with rage as he confronted a group of Zarthan officials. Their cold dismissal of his concerns was visible even from a distance. Ava and Marco hoisted the injured Vingsa between them, her iridescent blood staining their uniforms. Xyloth's guards formed a protective phalanx around the humans, their energy shields deflecting debris and projectiles. As they fought their way through the melee, Collins caught glimpses of the larger conflict unfolding. Rhaegar, the once proud Ladosian champion, was being dragged away in energy cuffs, roaring impotently at his Zarthan masters. Nearby, a group of First Ones toppled a statue of a Zarthan elder, the crash echoing through the arena. They reached the medical bay, a sterile white chamber that contrasted sharply with the violence outside. As alien medics swarmed around Ka-Ri, Xyloth approached the humans, her compound eyes glittering with awe-inspiring fury. Collins wiped sweat from his brow, leaving a smear of alien blood. "What do you mean?" Hours later, with Ka-Ri stabilized, the Vinza revealed the true scope of their predicament. The Zarthans, she explained, were manipulating the games to consolidate their power, corrupting the very foundation of galactic society. Collins absorbed this, his mind racing. So what now? We just keep competing while dodging assassination attempts? Xyloth stepped forward. No, we propose a more active role. Help us expose the Zarthan corruption. As outsiders, you have a unique perspective and a growing following among the oppressed civilizations. The human team exchanged glances. Lena spoke first, her voice hard. You want us to be your cat's paw. Collins considered for a long moment, then nodded. We're in, but we do this our way. The next event thrust them into a hellscape. A volcanic moon stretched before them, its surface a maze of lava flows and steaming vents. As competitors from across the galaxy lined up, Collins noticed odd fluctuations in the terrain. Naomi, he muttered, something's off with this moon. Keep your eyes open. As they raced across the blistering landscape, dodging gouts of lava and toxic gas, the truth became clear. The moon's geological activity was being artificially amplified, creating deadly traps for non-Zarthon competitors. Naomi confirmed Collins' suspicions, her geological expertise revealing the extent of the sabotage. They relayed the information to Xyloth, who dispatched Vinza agents to counteract the Zarthan interference. Meanwhile, Marco and Ava worked feverishly to construct makeshift protective gear from scavenged materials. Their jury-rigged suits allowed the humans to press on where other species faltered. As they neared the finish line, a massive earthquake split the ground. Collins watched in horror as several alien competitors plummeted into a newly formed chasm. Without hesitation, he veered off course, leading his team in a daring rescue operation. They emerged from the inferno battered but victorious, with irrefutable evidence of Zarthan duplicity. As Collins presented their findings to the assembled galactic media, a ripple of shock passed through the alien crowds. Listen up, he said, meeting each of their eyes in turn. I don't know how this ends, but right now we're the only ones who can see this through. Whatever comes next, we face it together. The team nodded, a fierce commitment evident in their stance. As they prepared to enter the arena once more, the fate of civilizations hung in the balance. The galactic games had become a crucible for change, with humanity standing at the center of the fire. The arena's reconfiguration for the next event was unlike anything the human team had witnessed before. Holographic barriers shimmered into existence, creating a multi-tiered battleground that defied conventional physics. Collins surveyed the alien landscape, his mind already racing with tactical possibilities. Lena frowned, her fingers flying over a datapad. And give the Zarthans one last shot at rigging the game. As if on cue, her device pinged. Lines of alien code scrolled across the screen, revealing a web of hidden protocols and failsafes. Lena's eyes widened. The tournament began with a brutal efficiency. Alien champions clashed in zero-gravity arenas, their bodies twisting in impossible ways as they grappled for dominance. Sharp cracks of energy weapons punctuated the air as marksmen dueled under swirling auroras of radioactive gas. Through it all, Collins advanced. His unorthodox tactics left opponents reeling, unable to predict his next move. In one match, he used the arena's fluctuating gravity to slingshot himself around a Denabian warrior, landing a decisive blow before his opponent could react. "They're planning to sabotage the environmental controls in your next match," the Vingsa agent hissed. "Toxic atmosphere, calibrated to human physiology." Marco grinned, holding up a device cobbled together from spare parts. "Already on it, boss. This little beauty should neutralize whatever they throw at us." The sabotage attempt failed spectacularly. As poisonous gases filled the arena, Collins activated Marco's device. A shimmering field enveloped him, filtering the air. His opponent, a hulking Zarthan elite, collapsed gasping while Collins stood tall. The crowd erupted. Chants of "Human, human," echoed through the stadium. In the VIP boxes, Zarthan officials seethed with almost unchecked rage. As Collins prepared for the final match against Reger, tensions reached a breaking point. Crowds of First Ones surged against security barriers, waving makeshift human flags. Clashes broke out between protesters and Zarthan enforcers. Xyloth's voice cut through the chaos on a private channel. "It's time. We're ready to broadcast the evidence." Moments later, every screen in the arena flickered. The match forgotten, all eyes turned to the damning footage now playing for the entire galaxy to see. Rigor's face contorted with shame as recordings showed him accepting Zarthan bribes, sabotaging equipment, and conspiring against other competitors. "Enough!" Zoran, the ancient being, materialized in the center of the arena. His form pulsed with otherworldly energy as he addressed the stunned crowd. "For too long, we have allowed corruption to taint these games. It is time for a new order." The First One's gaze swept over the assembled species before settling on Collins. "You humans have shown us a better way. The galaxy stands at a crossroads, and your actions will determine our path forward." Zoran nodded, his otherworldly form shimmering. "A fair referendum to determine the true victor of these games. What say you, human?" "We didn't come here for accolades," he said. "We came for fair competition. I propose the games continue under a new council representing all civilizations." The silence that followed was deafening. Then from the Xarthan delegation, a grudging nod of acceptance. Their empire was crumbling, but perhaps they could salvage some dignity. The final round was announced. A multi-environment challenge testing teamwork and strategy. Collins gathered his squad, their faces a mix of commitment and exhaustion. They faced off against Rhaegor and his team across a series of alien landscapes. In a frozen tundra, Naomi's geological expertise helped them navigate treacherous ice flows. On a gas giant's volatile surface, Marco's improvised atmospheric suits kept them alive. Throughout it all, the Vingsa provided crucial support. Kari's voice crackled over their comms, warning of Zarthan attempts to sabotage their equipment. With each obstacle overcome, the humans' unorthodox tactics left their opponents reeling. The final challenge unfolded on a barren moon. Collins watched as Rhaegar deployed waves of combat drones, a show of overwhelming force. But the Ladosian's arrogance was his undoing. "Now!" Collins shouted. His team scattered, drawing the drones into a carefully planned kill zone. Lena's hacked transmitters scrambled their control signals, while Ava's precisely placed explosives turned the terrain itself into a weapon. In minutes, Rhaegar's forces lay in ruins. As the dust settled, Collins extended a hand to his defeated rival. Rhaegar stared at it, then grudgingly clasped it. The gesture, broadcast across the galaxy, symbolized the dawn of a new era. Collins, dubbed the unassumed champion, prepared to step back. But fate had other plans. The newly appointed council leader, a respected First One's diplomat, fell to an assassin's blade. Zarthan radicals, unwilling to relinquish power, had made their move. Collins looked to his team, saw the determination in their eyes. He nodded. And so, the human team that had come seeking athletic glory found themselves thrust into galactic politics. As they worked to stabilize the new order, they faced opposition from entrenched powers and radical factions. Collins sat in his new office, surrounded by alien technology and unfamiliar star charts. A hologram flickered to life, showing Lena coordinating cybersecurity efforts against Zarthan hackers. Another display showed Marco overhauling the game's environmental systems to prevent future sabotage. He leaned back, considering their next move. The challenges ahead were immense, but they had overcome impossible odds before. As the stars wheeled overhead, Collins allowed himself a small smile. Their greatest test was just beginning. "Put it through," Collins sighed, straightening his posture. The air shimmered, and the towering form of Xyloth materialized before him. The Vinxa's mandibles clicked with agitation. Collins frowned. "We've been over this, Xyloth. The council was formed on principles of equality." A second transmission cut through, revealing Zoran's ethereal visage. "Equality? The Vinxa seek to replicate the very power dynamics we fought to dismantle. Gentlemen, this infighting is precisely what our enemies want," he said, his voice steady. "I propose a restructuring of the council, a system of checks and balances, overseen by an impartial human delegation." Silence filled the room. Xyloth's compound eyes narrowed, while Zoran's form pulsed with an unreadable energy. "A human oversight?" Xyloth finally spoke. "You overstep, Collins." Before he could respond, alarms blared throughout the complex. Lena's face appeared on a nearby screen, her expression grim. "Multiple terrorist attacks across 3 sectors," she reported. "They're targeting coalition outposts." Collins sprang into action, barking orders as he moved. "Lock down all sensitive areas. I want a full security sweep and—" A deafening explosion rocked the building. Through the window, Collins saw a plume of smoke rising from the nearby senatorial complex. "Kari," he breathed, remembering the Vinxa senator's office was located there. Hours later, Collins stood in the ruins of the bombed-out building. Rescue workers combed through the debris, pulling out survivors and bodies alike. A familiar figure limped towards him, her exoskeleton scorched and cracked. "Kari," Collins exhaled in relief. "We feared the worst." The Vinxa senator's eyes were hollow with grief. "My family, they didn't make it." Collins placed a hand on her shoulder, words failing him. In the distance, he saw Xyloth conferring with a group of agitated Vinxa officials. Their mandibles clicked furiously as they gestured towards the human delegation. Days later, Collins stood on the bridge of the UES Hawking, watching as the first wave of human peacekeepers deployed to the surface of Novus Prime. The planet below was a patchwork of fires and destruction, a stark reminder of the insurgency's brutality. Beside him, Commander Kai Cortez studied a holographic map of the conflict zones. Her eyes narrowed as she analyzed potential choke points and strongholds. "These combat mechs will give us an edge," Cortez said, gesturing to the towering machines being unloaded from the dropships. "But we're facing an enemy that knows the terrain and has local support. This won't be easy." An aide burst onto the bridge, his face pale. "Sir, we're detecting massive energy spikes across multiple systems. It's antimatter weapons. They're targeting stars." As alarms blared and crew members scrambled to their stations, Collins steeled himself for the fight ahead. The nascent interstellar alliance faced its greatest test, with countless lives hanging in the balance. "The Galactic Summit starts in an hour," Cortez said, her voice low. "Security's tighter than a neutron star's gravity well." Collins nodded, his eyes scanning the bustling docking bay. Alien delegates from 100 worlds milled about, their forms as diverse as the stars themselves. Tension crackled in the air like static electricity. "You dare accuse us of enabling terrorists?" hissed Xyloth, his exoskeleton dripping. "It was your power-hungry maneuvers that drove them to such extremes." Zoran's ethereal form pulsed with indignation. "Our actions? Your blatant grab for control destabilized the entire coalition?" Collins quickened his pace, Cortez at his heels. He thrust himself between the arguing factions, hands raised. "Enough," he barked, his voice cutting through the din. "This is precisely why we're here, Save your grievances for the summit floor. Esteemed delegates, Collins began, his voice echoing through the chamber. We stand at a crossroads. The recent tragedies have shaken us all, but we cannot let fear and mistrust tear us apart. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Collins pressed on, outlining his proposal for a human emissary to adjudicate disputes. The reaction was immediate and volatile. He activated the quantum data links, initiating the sovereign vote. The amphitheater fell silent as real-time results flooded in from across the galaxy. Collins watched the numbers climb, his heart pounding. 92.3% approval. The chamber erupted in a cacophony of alien voices. Before Collins could process the implications, the system chimed again. His own face appeared on the central holo display, labeled Prime Emissary. Stunned silence fell over the assembly. Collins gripped the podium, his mind blown. He hadn't anticipated this outcome, but he knew there was no turning back. I accept this responsibility, he said, his voice steady despite the turmoil in his gut. And I vow to uphold the principles that brought us together. In the days that followed, Collins worked tirelessly to enshrine new guidelines into the coalition charter. Transparency, accountability, and partnership became the pillars of the reformed interstellar coalition. As the final ratifications were made, Collins stood on a balcony overlooking the sprawling cityscape of Novus Prime. Commander Cortez approached, datapad in hand. The first human peacekeeping forces are ready for deployment, she reported. Where do you want us? Beginning. The real work is just starting, Collins said, his gaze fixed on the horizon. Deploy our forces strategically. We need to show the galaxy that humanity is here to help, not conquer. The entire system could be consumed, Collins finished, his eyes sharpening. Go, take whatever resources you need. As Cortez hurried away, Collins turned his attention to the flood of reports streaming in. The coalition was holding, but barely. Pockets of resistance flared across dozens of worlds, each a potential powder keg. A chime interrupted his thoughts. Prime Emissary, Lena's voice came through, tense with urgency. We have a situation on the Zoltran orbital habitats. Zarthan's splinter group, civilian hostages. Collins cursed under his breath. Patch me through to Cortez. The commander's face appeared grim and resolute. Already on it, sir. My team is en route. We'll handle this. A tentative peace settled over the coalition, but Collins knew better than to relax. In quiet moments, he caught the sidelong glances, the whispered conversations that ceased when humans approached. Not everyone was happy with humanity's sudden rise to prominence. Collins froze. The cyber warfare specialist? Last I heard, he was living off-grid after deserting Earth. Exactly, Marco nodded. He's got the skills we need, and he's not officially connected to us. It's perfect. Collins weighed the options, then nodded. Make the call. We'll need to move fast. Days later, Collins stood in a dimly lit room, facing the flickering hologram of Kim Jae-sun. The hacker's eyes were hard, suspicious. Collins leaned forward, his voice low and intense. Because there are innocent human colonists out there who need your help. Help us save them, and I'll ensure your slate is wiped clean. A fresh start. Kim was silent for a long moment, then nodded. I'm in, but this doesn't make us friends. The plan came together quickly. As Kim worked his digital magic, disabling Arian ships with surgical precision, Cortez's strike teams moved in. Collins watched from his command center, heart pounding as the operation unfolded. Across a dozen worlds, stranded Arian forces found themselves outmaneuvered and overwhelmed by human colonists they had once terrorized. Not a single coalition warship fired a shot, yet the victory was total. When the dust settled, Collins faced the Aryan Grand Matriarch Salaz via holo-transmission. Her scaled face was a mask of almost unchecked fury. You have made a grave mistake, human, she hissed. This humiliation will not be forgotten. As the transmission ended, Collins sank into his chair. They had won this battle, but the war for galactic unity was just the beginning. New challenges loomed on the horizon, and humanity would need every ounce of ingenuity to face them. Collins leaned back in his chair, his mind racing. The Aaron situation had been diffused, but he knew it was just the beginning. The galaxy was a powder keg of mistrust and resentment, with humanity caught in the crossfire. Lena's fingers flew over her console. "On it, sir. This might take a while." Days passed as Collins pored over Lena's findings. The picture that emerged was clear. Societies steeped in ancient traditions, clinging to the familiar in the face of rapid galactic change. The plan took shape quickly. Volunteers were vetted, briefed, and dispatched to the far corners of known space. Collins watched from his command center as the first teams embarked on their missions. Naomi Okoye's shuttle disappeared into the swirling clouds of the Shavi matrilineal spheres. Her voice crackled over the comms. "Entering the upper atmosphere now. Wish me luck." Days later, reports trickled in. Naomi had navigated the labyrinthine Shavi protocols, earning an audience with their ruling council. Her insights into sustainable development practices had piqued their interest, opening doors for further collaboration. On Grakuk, Kenji Sato's medical expertise was put to the ultimate test. A Caxan larvae outbreak threatened to decimate the insectoid population. Collins watched via live feed as Kenji worked tirelessly, adapting human treatments to alien physiology. "It's working," Kenji reported, his voice hoarse with exhaustion. "We've contained the outbreak. The Grakuk elders are impressed." The Kothrak capital world loomed before him, a forbidden jewel that had repelled all previous diplomatic efforts. Collins stepped off his shuttle, unarmed and alone. In a chamber deep within the Kothrak archives, Collins stood before the ruling council. "Your civilization has endured unimaginable hardships," he said, his voice echoing off the ancient stones. "Humanity's history is also one of struggle and resilience. Perhaps together we can forge a path that honors the past while embracing a shared future." The Kothrak Primarch's voice rumbled like distant thunder. "You speak well, human. We will allow a small scientific expedition to study the ruins of our fallen predecessors, and we will establish neutral trade enclaves within our borders." Collins stood on the observation deck of the Hawking, watching as ships from 100 worlds converged on Novus Prime. The emissary exchange had ignited a spark of hope across the galaxy, but he knew the real work was just beginning. Collins leaned back in his chair, a sudden spark of inspiration illuminating his tired features. He called up a holographic display, fingers dancing across the interface as he pulled up data from the emissary exchange program. "Lena, I need a full analysis of our exchange successes, cross-referenced with regions still experiencing instability," he said, his voice gaining strength as the idea took shape. Hours later, Collins stood before the Coalition Council, laying out his vision for the next phase of galactic integration, the Coalition Mentorship Program. "We've made incredible strides with the emissary exchange," he began, gesturing to the data hovering behind him. "But there are still worlds out there reeling from the recent conflicts. It's time we take a more active role in their recovery." The council chamber buzzed with murmurs, a mix of excitement and trepidation. Xyloth's crystalline eyes narrowed. "You propose to directly intervene in these worlds' rebuilding efforts?" Collins nodded. "Not as conquerors or overlords, but as mentors. We'll share our expertise, our technology, our methods, tailored to each world's unique needs and cultures." The debate raged for days, but in the end, the council approved. Collins wasted no time in mobilizing his teams. On Avalrin, a once lush world now scarred by Zarthan's scorched earth tactics, Marco Torres stepped off the transport, surveying the blasted landscape. His engineering crew fanned out behind him, already scanning and assessing. "It's worse than the reports indicated," Marco muttered, kicking at the ashen soil. But as he looked up, he saw a group of Avalrinian survivors approaching, hope flickering in their bioluminescent eyes. "You're the humans?" one asked, voice trembling. "You've come to help us rebuild?" Marco nodded, a determined smile spreading across his face. "That's right. And we're going to do more than just rebuild. We're going to make Avalrin stronger than ever." But it wasn't just about the technology. Marco made sure his team worked alongside the Avalrinians, teaching them every step of the process. "This isn't a handout," he explained to a young apprentice. "We're giving you the tools to shape your own future." Meanwhile, on the aquatic world of Ravalax, Naomi Okoye donned her pressure suit, preparing to dive into the planet's polluted oceans. Her team of xenobiologists had spent weeks developing a bioremediation process tailored to Ravalax's unique ecosystem. As she descended into the murky depths, Naomi's heart ached at the devastation. Once vibrant coral formations lay bleached and lifeless, while schools of bioluminescent fish struggled in the toxic waters. Naomi activated her comlink. "Let's show them what we can do together," she said, her voice filled with purpose. The next few months saw a remarkable transformation. Human and Ravi worked side by side, releasing engineered microorganisms that broke down pollutants at an unprecedented rate. As the waters cleared, Naomi guided the Ravis in establishing protected marine reserves, ensuring the recovered ecosystems would thrive for generations to come. As the seasons passed, Ava's team guided the Zilrians in cultivating thriving agrarian ecosystems. Ancient Zilrian traditions were woven into modern farming techniques, creating a unique synthesis of old and new. The true test came when the first harvest arrived. Ava stood back, heart pounding, as the Zilrian elders inspected the fruits of their labor. When the eldest among them took a bite of a ripe, juicy fruit, his eyes widened in wonder. As word of these successes spread, even former adversaries began to take notice. The Kothrak, once fiercely isolationist, requested human mentors to help revive lost medical practices. Kenji Sato found himself leading a team deep into Kothrak territory, his mind racing with the possibilities of merging human neuroscience with ancient Kothrak biochemistry. "Your methods, they challenge everything we thought we knew," one Kothrak healer admitted, mandibles clicking in agitation. "But the results, they cannot be denied." Back on Earth, in a secured facility deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, Kim Jae-sun stood before a class of eager students, a mix of humans and aliens from across the galaxy. The room hummed with the energy of dozens of quantum computers, their holographic displays flickering with streams of impossibly complex code. As Kim guided his students through the intricacies of polymorphic code foundries and multi-dimensional encryption algorithms, he couldn't help but marvel at how far they'd come. These weren't just students, they were the architects of a new digital frontier, one that would safeguard the knowledge and discoveries of a united galaxy. In the command center on Novus Prime, Collins watched as reports flooded in from across the stars. Each success, each breakthrough, each life changed. They all added up to something greater than he had ever imagined. But as he prepared for a video conference with the Aryan matriarchs, now eager to learn from human educational models, Collins knew that their work was far from finished. The galaxy was changing, faster than anyone had anticipated, and humanity, for better or worse, was at the heart of it all. "Today, we lay the foundation for true interspecies cooperation," Collins announced, his voice ringing through the grand hall. "I present to you Unity College." As the presentation concluded, Zoran, the crystalline First One's elder, stepped forward. "The Zilrian people owe our renaissance to human guidance," he intoned, his multifaceted eyes gleaming. "It is only fitting that our initiates be among the first to walk Unity's halls." In the months that followed, Unity College took shape. Collins personally oversaw the development of its curriculum, weaving together human philosophical traditions with alien perspectives. The campus buzzed with activity as construction crews and academic planners worked tirelessly to bring his vision to life. As the first cohorts of Unity graduates emerged, their impact was immediately felt across the coalition. Thal Kor, a Kothrak graduate who had initially kept to himself, now stood before the Kothrak High Council, advocating for increased galactic engagement. "Our isolation has been our strength," Thal Kor admitted, his mandibles clicking nervously. "But it has also been our limitation. At Unity, I've seen firsthand the power of collaboration." "These humans," one matriarch buzzed, her wings vibrating with a mix of curiosity and concern. "Their methods are unorthodox, but the results cannot be denied." Another matriarch, her carapace bearing the marks of great age, leaned forward. "Perhaps it is time we consider a more direct approach. Our observers have thrived in this Unity environment. What might we gain from fuller participation?" "Today," Collins began, his voice carrying across the assembly, "we celebrate not just your individual achievements, but the birth of a new era of galactic cooperation. He paused, allowing the weight of the moment to settle over the crowd. Then with a smile, he continued. As Ambassador Phyla of the Etheric Skyborn, Sub-Constructor Drax from the Vorn Conclave, and Tactical Savant Kresh of the Aryan took the stage, the audience erupted in thunderous applause. The sound reverberated through the hall, a symphony of voices and appendages united in celebration. Collins watched as the newly appointed commanders shook hands and various other appropriate appendages with their human counterparts. In their eyes, he saw the same fire, the same hunger for knowledge and exploration that had driven humanity to the stars. As the ceremony concluded and the graduates dispersed to begin the next chapter of their journey, Collins found himself looking to the sky. The stars seemed brighter somehow, full of promise and possibility. The Interspecies Exploration Initiative was just the beginning. A new age of harmonious ambition was dawning, and Unity College would be at its heart. The Harbinger cut through the fabric of space, its sleek hull gleaming under the light of distant stars. On the bridge, Ambassador Phyla of the Etheric Skyborn leaned forward, her iridescent wings twitching with anticipation. Anomaly detected, Sub-Constructor Drax announced, his metallic Vorn appendages dancing across the control panel. Energy signature unlike anything in our databases. Commander Marco Torres nodded, his eyes fixed on the interface. Take us in, nice and easy. Torres turned to his crew, a mix of species united by their shared Unity College training. This is what we came for, people. Let's make history. Over the next hours, human engineers worked in tandem with Therian astrogators, their minds melding through neural interfaces developed by Aryan biotechnicians. They wove a tapestry of equations and energy fields, slowly stabilizing an approach vector through the anomaly. As the Harbinger touched down on the alien world, Torres felt a surge of pride. This wasn't just a human achievement, it was a testament to what could be accomplished when species worked as one. Months later, the Harbinger found itself in a different kind of peril. A Dyson sphere loomed before them, its surface crawling with malevolent machine infections. We can't leave them to their fate, Ambassador Phyla insisted, her translator struggling to convey the depth of her empathy. Savant Kresh's mandibles clicked rapidly as he formulated a plan. I propose a multi-pronged assault. Human Marines for their adaptability, Vorn armatures for raw power. What followed was a grueling battle against rogue AI and corrupted nanites. Human soldiers, their armor gleaming with Vorn-derived upgrades, fought alongside towering robotic warriors. They pushed deeper into the megastructure, guided by Kresh's tactical brilliance. Kai Cortez nodded, her scarred face set in persistence. I have just the team for this. On a balcony overlooking the sprawling cityscape of New Okoye, an aged Frank Collins gazed at the alien sunset. He felt a deep satisfaction at how far they'd come, yet a nagging unease tugged at him. Something stirred in the vast emptiness between galaxies, a presence that would soon test humanity and its allies as never before. But that was a challenge for another day. For now, Collins allowed himself a moment to appreciate the fruits of their labor, a galaxy forever changed by the power of unity. The tranquility of New Okoye's sunset was shattered by an urgent comm alert. Collins's implant flashed, projecting a holographic message from Marco Torres. Frank, we've got a situation. The Harbinger's deep recon probes picked up something unsettling. Within hours, Collins found himself aboard the Coalition's flagship, staring at sensor readouts that defied explanation. Torres pointed to a cluster of pulsating energy signatures emanating from an uncharted region of space. Collins convened an emergency summit, gathering the brightest minds from across the Coalition. The atmosphere was tense as data streamed across holographic displays, painting a picture of cosmic anomalies that challenged their understanding of physics. The Therian Praetorian commander, a veteran of countless frontier conflicts, studied the readings with narrowed eyes. These patterns, they're not random. There's intelligence behind them. As debates raged, Collins listened intently. Some argued for immediate action, proposing sterilization strikes to neutralize the potential threat. Others, including Collins himself, advocated for caution. The elite Xeno-integrated strike squad deployed under cover of advanced stealth technology. Their mission, to penetrate the periphery of the God Vaults and gather critical data without detection. During the debriefing, an Orion operative suddenly convulsed, her cybernetic systems overloaded by an invasive presence. Despite the team's best efforts, they couldn't purge the alien influence from her neural matrix. As the summit reconvened, Collins faced the most challenging decision of his career. The assembled leaders argued fiercely, their voices rising in a cacophony of fear and perseverance. Zoran, the crystalline First One's elder, raised a multifaceted hand for silence. We must not act rashly. These entities may possess wisdom beyond our comprehension. His proposal was met with skepticism, but as the alternatives were discussed, each more desperate than the last, a consensus began to form. They would attempt contact while preparing for the worst. Assemble the most formidable strike force the Coalition has ever seen, Collins ordered. But first, we extend an olive branch. As the summit dispersed, Collins found himself alone with Torres and the Praetorian. The weight of their task hung heavy in the air. Torres raised an eyebrow. Are you sure? Once we open that door... Collins nodded grimly. We're beyond politics now. This is about survival. As preparations began in earnest, Collins couldn't shake the feeling that they stood on the precipice of something monumental. The universe had changed when humanity reached for the stars. Now they reached for something far greater and far more dangerous. Standing by. Within hours, a nondescript transport touched down at the Coalition's secure xenohabitat. As the boarding ramp lowered, Collins watched a diverse team of operatives disembark, Earth's finest, each bearing the subtle augmentations and hardened demeanor of veteran X-Risks agents. Major Chandra, a statuesque woman with dark skin and piercing cybernetic eyes, approached Collins and Torres. Gentlemen, she said, her voice low and controlled, I understand we have a universe to save. As Torres outlined the situation, Collins studied the assembled strike team. The Praetorian stood apart, his xeno-integrated form a testament to the Coalition's ethos of unity. Beside him, Subjugator Maximus Thrask of the Vorn Dominion loomed, his biomechanical frame humming with latent energy. Baroness Erazia of the Xyloth Shadow Disciplines seemed to shimmer at the edges, as if not fully anchored to this reality. Our plan, Torres continued, is a simultaneous four-pronged assault through quantum apertures. We'll hit the vaults before they fully materialize in our universe. Major Chandra's eyes narrowed. You're talking about breaching hyperspatial boundaries. The risks. The Praetorian nodded, his voice a low rumble. We face the unmaking of reality itself, but we will not falter. In the hours that followed, a palpable tension filled the xenohabitat. Transdimensional stargates hummed to life, their energies crackling across multiple planes of existence. Collins watched as the four strike forces assembled before their respective portals, each a deadly amalgam of species and technologies united against a common threat. Major Chandra's voice crackled over the comms. Umbra analysis complete. Quantum potentials aligned. We're as ready as we'll ever be. Collins took a deep breath, keenly aware that his next words might be the last ever uttered in this universe. Operation Godbreaker is go. May whatever gods exist have mercy on us all. For several agonizing minutes, there was nothing but silence. Then the sensors exploded with data, overloading systems as they struggled to process the cosmic maelstrom unfolding across dimensions. Before he could finish, another alarm blared. Collins watched in horror as entire sections of the galactic map began to vanish, consumed by an expanding gravitic anomaly. As the situation spiraled out of control, Collins could only watch helplessly as reality itself began to unravel. The fate of existence now rested in the hands of those brave few who had ventured into the depths of cosmic horror. Status report, he barked, fighting to keep his voice steady. Torres's fingers flew across the interface, his face illuminated by the crimson glow of emergency lighting. Thrask's team is offline. Praetorian's Godbreaker Vanguard is engaging the Overmind, but we're losing telemetry. Erazia's Unmaker Lances are... I don't even know how to describe it. They're rewriting the fabric of space-time. A deafening screech tore through the command center, forcing everyone to their knees. As the sound faded, Collins looked up to see the holographic display flickering wildly, struggling to render the impossible geometries now spreading across known space. The speakers crackled to life, Kondra's voice distorted and overlaid with sounds that sent shivers down Collins's spine. Uploaded consciousness, hyperdynamic lattice, only chance. Forgive us. My God, Torres whispered. They did it. They've triggered a retroactive collapse of the vault's ontological structure. As the cosmic upheaval began to subside, the true cost of their victory became apparent. Entire civilizations had been erased from the timeline, never having existed in the first place. The survivors of Godbreaker drifted in the void, their very beings altered by their brush with the infinite. Collins slumped into a chair, the weight of their Pyrrhic victory pressing down on him. Initiate recovery protocols, he ordered, his voice hoarse, and prepare the interdimensional hyperjail. We can't risk the knowledge they've gained spreading unchecked. As the coalition scrambled to contain the aftermath of Godbreaker, Collins couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. The universe had changed irrevocably, and humanity's place in it was more precarious than ever before. In the depths of the hyperjail, the overwritten survivors of Godbreaker stirred, their minds filled with truth too terrible to comprehend. And in the vast, wounded cosmos beyond, something ancient and unknowable took notice of the beings who had dared to challenge the very foundations of reality. Sir, Torres called from the command center's entrance, we have a situation. Collins turned, noting the grim set of Torres's jaw. What now? Torres' expression darkened further. The Aaron matriarchy is mobilizing for conflict. They believe we've disrupted some kind of cosmic order. Even the Vinza Empire is questioning our motives. As if to punctuate Torres's words, alarms blared throughout the facility. Collins rushed to the holographic display, watching in horror as reports of open revolts flooded in from fringe colony worlds. It's not just our allies, Torres continued. We're seeing mass defections. Former subordinates are forming breakaway factions. They're calling us profane. Before Torres could respond, the Praetorian burst into the room, his xeno-integrated form crackling with energy. Collins, he rasped, his voice distorted. We have a greater threat. As the Praetorian spoke, the holographic display behind him warped, its clean lines twisting into labyrinthine patterns. Collins watched in fascination and horror as entire sectors of the galaxy began to vanish, replaced by swirling vortexes of data. They have an agenda, the Praetorian continued, his voice growing weaker. To consume, to reinstantiate the orders that spawned them. We are obstacles. Zoran's crystalline form pulsed with subdued light as he addressed the assembly. We stand at a crossroads. The actions taken in Operation Godbreaker have shaken the very foundations of our reality, but we must not let fear drive us apart. A towering Kothrak representative rose, his voice booming. And why should we trust the words of those who have already brought such calamity upon us? Before Collins could respond, the chamber's central holoprojector flickered to life, displaying a familiar face that sent a chill down his spine. Rhaegor, the disgraced Zarthan champion, smiled coldly. Indeed, why should any of us trust humanity's tainted vision? Collins's hand instinctively went to his sidearm, but he forced himself to remain calm. Rhaegor, I should have known you'd try to exploit this chaos. The hologram expanded, revealing Rhaegor standing before a vast array of ships and soldiers. I am merely offering an alternative, Collins. A return to the natural order, before humanity's meddling unleashed cosmic horrors upon us all. The chamber erupted into chaos as leaders recognized the unfolding catastrophe. Collins locked eyes with Zoran, a silent understanding passing between them. We need a new strategy, he muttered, more to himself than to Torres, who stood silently beside him. As if in response to his words, a burst of static erupted from the comm system. A familiar voice, distorted and barely recognizable, filled the command center. Collins, it's J-Sun. We've made contact. Your predicament intrigues us, Frank Collins. The Vectorance's multitude of voices resonated within his mind. We offer a solution, but the cost will be substantial. Do it, Collins said, his voice barely above a whisper. The matriarchy still distrusts you, Kresh said, her eyes narrowing. But I see the necessity of your plan. Our hyper-topological displacement arcs are at your disposal. With the pieces in place, Collins gave the order to commence Operation Severance. The command center erupted into controlled chaos as human cyber brigades, Erin Archangel vectors, and the Vectorance's cosmic aspects synchronized their efforts. Puritan front cultists detected in Sector 17, Torres reported, his fingers flying across the interface. They're attempting mass self-termination. Deploy the noetic lances, Collins ordered, his eyebrows furrowed. As the operation reached its climax, Collins watched in awe and horror as the infected volumes of space were severed from the universe. The Xylothians, the Zilrians, and countless other species simply ceased to exist, their histories and futures alike erased in an instant. After tense deliberation, the oligarchs grudgingly agreed. Collins allowed himself a moment of satisfaction before turning to the tasks ahead. Naomi Okoye's voice crackled over the comms as Collins boarded his command ship. Sir, we've identified a priority target in the Purgatrixes. Gaynor 7 is overrun. Set course immediately, Collins ordered. The ship plunged into the quarantine zone, reality warping around them. On Gaynor 7's surface, the air crackled with malevolent energy. Kim Jae-sun's cyber legionnaires engaged in frantic virtual combat, their bodies twitching as their minds battled corrupted machine intelligences. Torres, status on the ionic munitions, Collins barked into his comm. Brilliant flashes of light erupted across the planet's surface as the hyper-dense projectiles impacted. Reality itself seemed to scream as the anomalies were cauterized. In the midst of the chaos, Lena Ivanova materialized with her unchained disciples. They moved with preternatural speed, ambushing cultist rituals mid-incantation. Collins, we've got a problem, Ivanova's voice cut through the din. They're attempting a mass self-negation. The cultists' chanting reached a fever pitch as Collins and his team arrived. Reality buckled around them, threatening to tear apart. A barrage of ionic munitions rained down, shattering the cultist formation. As the dust settled, Collins surveyed the battlefield. They had won this skirmish, but countless more lay ahead. Back on the command ship, an urgent transmission came through. Sir, we've detected an encrypted Starlance signal, an officer reported. Origin unknown, but it bears Praetorian signature. Collins's heart raced as he decrypted the message. Praetorian's familiar voice filled the command center, revealing the true nature of the death cult's endgame. A primal sheaf state, Collins muttered, the implications sinking in. He turned to his assembled officers. We need to push them back, consolidate their forces, prepare for a final offensive. The crusade intensified, driving the cultists into ever smaller pockets of corrupted space. During a pitched battle in the Shanadar Rift, Collins watched in horror as the cult nearly achieved their terminal breach. Kothrak Shardborn, this is your moment, he transmitted to the alien warriors. Without hesitation, they plunged into the nascent singularity, their sacrifice shattering the anti-reality construct. As victory seemed within reach, Praetorian's voice once again reached out to Collins. The hybrid consciousness proposed a radical solution, one that would forever alter the nature of existence itself. Initiate Omega recursion protocols, he commanded. We're going to reset the cosmos. Initiate Omega recursion protocols, Collins commanded. We're going to reset the universe. The words hung in the air for a moment, their weight palpable. Then a flurry of activity erupted as the command center sprung into action. Praetorian, are you ready? Collins asked, his voice steady despite the enormity of what they were about to attempt. The hybrid consciousness responded, its multifaceted voice resonating through the neural link. Affirmative, Frank Collins. The pre-Genesis matrix is primed. We must act swiftly. Collins nodded, then turned to his team. This is it. Everything we fought for comes down to this moment. As Praetorian began the process, reality itself seemed to shudder. The view screens displayed a cacophony of impossible colors as the universe was anchored into the artificial pre-Genesis matrix. Deploy the Unchained Disciples, Collins ordered. We can't let them sabotage this. Lena Ivanova's voice crackled over the comms. My team is moving into position. We'll neutralize any recursions we encounter. The next hours passed in a blur of frantic activity. Collins watched as entire galaxies were compressed into data manifolds, preserved against the coming reset. The screams of dying stars and the birth cries of new realities blended into a cosmic symphony. Stasis lock at 89%, Torres announced. We're approaching the critical threshold. Collins gritted his teeth. Push it to the limit. We can't afford to lose a single iota of data. As the universal reset reached its climax, Collins felt a moment of vertigo. His consciousness seemed to expand, encompassing the entirety of the collapsing cosmos. In that instant, he saw everything. Every life, every world, every possibility that had ever existed or would exist. Did it work? Ivanova asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Collins nodded slowly. It worked, but at what cost? As they surveyed the virgin universe spread out before them, Collins felt the weight of their accomplishment and their responsibility. They had saved existence itself, but in doing so, they had wiped the slate clean. Countless civilizations, entire histories had been erased. So what now? Torres asked, breaking the silence. Collins turned to face his companions, his eyes reflecting the light of reborn stars. Now, we decide the future of everything. Collins, Torres, and Ivanova stood in silence, the weight of their decision palpable. The universe stretched before them, a blank canvas awaiting their touch. Torres nodded, already pulling up holographic schematics. I've got an idea. We integrate human nanotech with Aryan hypergeometries, mobile armillary spheres, potentiality forges. We can initiate controlled big rebangs, create new universal domains. Collins studied the plans, his mind racing. Do it, both of you. We have a chance to reshape everything, to prevent another pariah strain apocalypse. The activation sequence began. Reality rippled and bent around them as the forge came online. Streams of pure potentiality erupted from its core, unfurling into dimensions beyond human comprehension. It's working, Torres shouted over the roar of creation. The new physical laws are taking hold. Before their eyes, fractal universes blossomed into existence. Alien landscapes of pure thought and experience stretched across infinite planes. In one nascent realm, rivers of living mathematics flowed through forests of crystalline logic. Kim Jae-soo into them, his eyes seed with wonder. I've done it, he breathed. Synthetic evolutions, entire civilizations of posthuman super evolving eons in microseconds. They watched as new cosmic structures took shape. Realms of pure ideation collided and merged, forming dizzying spirals of informational aesthetics. In one newborn universe, the essence of Praetorian manifested as a divine idea form, seeding meta-ontologies across countless realities. Kresh's consciousness, preserved through the reset, unfurled into a hypersphere of pure mathematics. Within it, godlike minds spontaneously generated infinite universes from mere thought. As the new multiverse expanded around them, Collins felt a twinge of unease. We need to be careful, he warned. These experiments are incredible, but we can't let them destabilize everything we've built. He initiated his own project, harmonic matrices. These were carefully curated universal templates, blending advanced human science with alien wisdom to create idealized, stable cosmic paradigms. The team worked tirelessly, monitoring the cascade of new realities. They pruned dangerous offshoots and nurtured promising developments. With each passing moment, the scope of their creation grew beyond imagining. He was cut off by a sudden alarm. Torres rushed to a console, his face pale. We've got a problem. I'm detecting anomalous resonances bleeding in from somewhere outside our new framework. The team gathered around the display, watching as strange, familiar patterns began to emerge in the data. Collins felt a chill run down his spine as he recognized the signature. Collins stared at the display, his palms sweating. The familiar patterns were unmistakable. Echoes of the old cosmos, the very threats they had sought to erase, were bleeding into their newborn reality. Torres, initiate pan-universal security protocols, Collins ordered, his voice taut. We need to stabilize these domains before we lose control. Torres nodded, his fingers flying across holographic interfaces. Integrating Aryan hypercomputation barricades now, Praetorian's idea form is anchoring the reality firewalls. The command center hummed with frantic activity as they raced to contain the spreading infection. Quarantine vectors sprang into existence, compartmentalizing infected manifold clusters. Collins gritted his teeth. Deploy containment teams. We can't let this spread further. It's the dread entity, Praetorian's multifaceted voice resonated through their neural links. A mimetic specter from the old universe. It's hijacking the sacred resonance currents. They watched helplessly as parasitic indoctrined dogmas triggered waves of cellular meta-apoptosis, cascading through the matrix. Only Praetorian's swift intervention, containing the entity within hyperdimensional monoblock barriers, averted total catastrophe. In the aftermath, Collins paced the command center, his mind racing. We need a new approach, something to stabilize reality at its core. Ivanova stepped forward, her eyes gleaming with tenacity. I have an idea. We deploy an elite consciousness core, awoken human transcendence with advanced ethosemiotic cognition abilities. Collins nodded slowly, considering the implications. Do it. Assemble your team. Neutralize those clusters, Ivanova shouted, her consciousness resonating with harmonic, infusionic articulacy. Don't let them spread. It's trying to pollute the sacred hyperground states, Jason warned, his voice distorted by deep immersion in the universal codes. The core combined their abilities, weaving a complex tapestry of thought and energy to strangle the parasitic engram. Reality itself seemed to shudder as they excised the last traces of Rajgar's zealotry from the newborn cosmos. Back at the command center, Collins reviewed the core's success with a mixture of relief and trepidation. They had prevented total manifold annihilation and safeguarded quintillions of infant realities. Yet he couldn't shake the feeling that this was merely the beginning. We've won this battle, he murmured, gazing at the swirling map of reality before him. But the war for existence itself has only just begun. Begun, Collins finished, his gaze fixed on the swirling chaos before them. Alarms blared as new threats emerged across the multiverse. Ivanova's voice cut through the noise. We've got a situation in the Philignum simulation, some kind of ego-virus strain. Okoye, analyze the infection vector, Ivanova ordered. Ray Lyon, probe the mimoplexual nexus. Ivanova watched in horror as Ray Lyon's ethosemiotic patterns warped and fractured. Pull her out, she shouted. I am all, she proclaimed. Reality shall be rewritten in my image. The manifold buckled as Rayline's transformed essence began to overwrite existence itself. Civilizations crumbled, replaced by grotesque monuments to her new self. Okoye's voice cut through the chaos. I've got a countermeasure. It's risky, but... Do it, Ivanova commanded. Okoye's form shimmered, her metamorphic abilities pushed to their limit. She became a living antivirus, her consciousness reshaped into the perfect counteragent to Ray Lyon's egregore. For a moment, two titanic wills clashed across the fabric of reality. Then, with a sound like shattering glass, Ray Lyon's ascension collapsed. The manifold stabilized, wounded, but intact. Back at Coalition headquarters, Collins listened to Ivanova's report with growing concern. These incursions are getting worse, he said. We need a new strategy. Praetorian's multifaceted voice resonated through the command center. I have a proposal. We must recruit more beings like myself, apotheosized savants from the ranks of the first ones, a cadre of Xenautarchs to reinforce our dominion. Torres and Jason threw themselves into the work, their minds expanding to encompass impossible geometries. Torres constructed the central potentiality nexus, a lattice of pure possibility integrating primordial Aryan ultra geometries. Jason wove intricate meta-encryption rootkits, anchoring the communion's command architecture in the bedrock of existence itself. As the Pyramidion neared completion, the newly assembled Xenautarchs gathered for synchronization rituals. Their consciousnesses resonated across dimensions, attuning to the cosmic symphony. The precursor's message unfolded in Zoran's mind like a fractal bloom. Humanity's God-forged ascension had unleashed new levels of existential predation. The very act of creating had drawn the attention of threats beyond imagining. As the vision faded, Zoran opened his eyes to find the other Xenautarchs staring at him expectantly. He took a deep breath, preparing to share the weight of their new responsibility. "My friends," Zoran began, his voice resonating with newfound purpose, "our work has only just begun. We must forge the ultimate defense, the omegalithic sigildries." Praetorian's multifaceted form shimmered, projecting hyper-ontological skeins that wove through the fabric of reality. Torres manipulated impossible geometries, anchoring the barriers in the bedrock of existence. Jae-sun's mind raced through layers of encryption, fortifying each strand against transcendent threats. Suddenly, Zoran's body went rigid. His eyes rolled back, revealing only whites. A keening wail escaped his lips as an alien presence invaded his mind. "Zoran!" Collins shouted, rushing to his side. The other Xenautarchs reacted instantly. Torres's hands blurred as he transmuted the malignant intrusion into inert data structures. Praetorian's essence flared, severing extra-dimensional connections. Zoran collapsed, gasping. It tried to overwrite me," he panted. "A vanguard, a probe." Jae-sun nodded, his pupils dilating as he interfaced directly with the simulation's ultra-structure. His consciousness expanded, probing the alien code. Jae-sun's eyes refocused as he considered. Yes, we could distill humanity's adaptability into sub-existential codices, create self-evolving omnivirian ecosystems. They set to work immediately, initiating the genoseeding process. Streams of golden light suffused the manifold as the first viral seedings took root. Collins felt the weight of countless realities pressing down upon him as he gazed into the abyss. There, in the primordial void, he glimpsed an unthinkable singularity, the harbinger of universal oblivion. The Xenautarchs assembled, their god-forged powers blazing like newborn stars. As the shadow of the anathema fell upon them, they stood ready to wage war on a scale beyond imagination, with all of existence hanging in the balance. Torres, initiate hyperadaptive bastion engrams. Ivanova, deploy the consciousness core. We need to buy time. Torres' hands danced across holographic interfaces, projecting streams of golden light that suffused the manifold. The omnivirial regeneration seeds took root, rapidly bootstrapping emergent reality subdomains. Entire sectors of existence remapped themselves, realigning into self-preserving existential bulwarks. Praetorian's multifaceted form shimmered as it enacted paradoxical retrogenesis subversions. Seeding quarantine sectors, it intoned, its voice resonating across dimensions. Entire universal domains sheared away from the autarky's locum, hardening against the anathema's infectious advance. Yet even as they fought, Zoran's eyes widened with cosmic dread. "It's beginning," he whispered. "The anathema's cosmic void birth is immanentizing across universes." "Initiate manifold genesis," he commanded. "We'll create new existential bulwarks." Power surged through the central hypervector as newborn universes spawned fully awakened. These rapidly iterating metaphysical recursion loops bore the imprint of Praetorian's reality architecture, fortified by Collins's own unbreakable human psyche. In their final moments, the Xenautarchs joined their power. A vision bloomed in their shared consciousness, a new primordial cosmic egg, perfect and radiant with infinite possibilities. The vision faded, and Collins found himself floating in a sea of potentiality. The megaclysm's furious assault continued, but now it raged against something greater. A harmonious totality incarnated to transcend the very brutality that had spawned it. The newborn cosmos unfurled like a flower, its petals of reality blossoming from the infinite potential of the Omega Manifold. At its core, Collins and his fellow Xenautarchs stood in awe of their creation, their consciousnesses intertwined with the very fabric of existence. "It's beautiful," Ivanova breathed, her essence resonating with the harmonious vibrations of the first cosmos. They dove into the metaphysical structure of reality, their godlike intellects weaving intricate patterns of protection. Torres focused on curiosity, encoding the drive for exploration and discovery into the very laws of physics. Okoye imbued the cosmic axioms with empathy, ensuring that all sentient life would have an innate capacity for understanding and compassion. As they worked, the first realm coalesced around them. Avalon Prime took shape, a jewel of a world teeming with life and possibility. Collins watched as the first humans awakened on its surface, their eyes filled with wonder as they gazed upon the verdant paradise. "We have a problem," Jason announced, his face grim as he projected a holographic display of Xylatha 4. "The tribes there have turned to violence and forced conversions. They're rejecting the path of harmony." The mentored adept nodded, her hands moving in complex patterns as she initiated the delicate process of bifurcating causality. With surgical precision, she excised the corrupted realm, sealing it away in its own pocket of existence. But Xylatha 4 was only the beginning. As more conflicts erupted across the manifold, the Xenautarchs found themselves constantly intervening, quarantining divergent realities to preserve the integrity of their creation. Commander Cortez stumbled through a portal, his form flickering as he struggled to maintain coherence. "Null space 0059, he gasped. It's indescribable. We need to act now." In the aftermath, as reports of the suffering in the quarantine zones filtered in, Zoran's usually serene face was etched with anguish. "Have we become no better than the threats we sought to prevent?" he asked. Collins had no answer. Instead, he called the Xenautarchs together, their forms assembling in the heart of Avalon Prime. "We need a new approach," he said, his voice heavy with the burden of their godhood. "The iconic Hyperdome. It's our only option." "What have we become?" he whispered to the void, knowing that the answer might forever elude them. Collins's contemplation was interrupted by a sudden surge of energy rippling through the iconic Hyperdome. He turned to find Marco Torres approaching, his form shimmering with barely suppressed frustration. The debate escalated, echoing through the metaphysical corridors of Avalon Prime. Collins listened, weighing their arguments against the weight of his own doubts. "Hyperdome breach imminent," Cortez reported. "The severed realms are destabilizing rapidly. We're detecting something clawing at the outer membrane." Collins's mind raced. "Initiate reabsorption protocols," he ordered. "J-Sun, oversee the hypercompression of key territories." The process began immediately. Vast swaths of reality folded in on themselves, compressing into dense packets of information. As they reintegrated into the Avalon matrix, alarms blared across multiple dimensions. "Contamination detected," Naomi Okoye's voice cut through the chaos. "Xenobiological anomalies emerging in reconstituted zones." Collins watched in horror as reality itself seemed to glitch and warp. Entropy nodes blossomed like cancerous growths across the continuum. At the core wellspring, Zoran's eyes snapped open, his consciousness returning from communion with the transcended sentience. "The void between universes," he gasped. "Something's coming through." Cortez's analysis confirmed their worst fears. The reabsorption had torn holes in the fabric of reality, creating unstable conduits to the spaces between universes. "Activate the xenoforges," Collins commanded. "Full production of hybrid xenotechnologies. Ivanova, deploy the consciousness core. We need to contain this." As the battle raged across multiple planes of existence, Collins felt the strain of maintaining Avalon's integrity. He watched helplessly as an outer realm succumbed to entropic decay, its very constants unraveling into formless void. The realization hit him like a physical blow. In their zeal to protect Avalon, they had left themselves vulnerable. The auxiliary realms, once playgrounds for exploration, now served as bridges for an invasion beyond their comprehension. Collins's mind raced as reality trembled around him. The invasion from beyond threatened to unravel everything they had built. With grim willpower, he summoned the Xenautarchs to the heart of Avalon Prime. "I propose the severance doctrine," Collins continued. "All quarantined realms exhibiting terminal ontological rot will be hyper-compressed into self-sealing singularity hold spaces, permanently severed from the Avalon matrix. Torres stepped forward, his form crackling with impossibly strong energy. Frank, think of the scientific potential we'd be losing. There must be another way. But Cortez was already moving, his tactical mind assessing the threat. We don't have time for half measures. I'll lead the deployments myself. On Entropia 15, Jae Sun's cyber ritualists clashed with writhing meta-entropic parasites. The air crackled with eldritch energies as they fought to subvert the invaders' base code. Okoye materialized beside them, her hands weaving intricate patterns. "Hold the line," she commanded, her voice resonating with cosmic authority. As the cyber ritualists pushed back the parasites, Okoye began force-transcribing noospheric omega motifs. The failing realm compressed around them, collapsing into atemporal quantum calculi beyond the reach of corrosive intrusion. Within Avalon's core sanctums, newly elevated Xenoguardians fortified the Hyperdome's innermost metaphysical bulwarks. They wove cypheric, hyper-ontological inscriptions throughout the central manifold's root constants, encoding existential vigor and resilience into the very fabric of reality. Despite their efforts, reports flooded in of dimensional terminus sites corrupted into exotic ontopestilences. Unknown transcendent xenopathogens propagated through the primordial substructure, mutating foundational codices. Zoran burst into the central chamber, his eyes wide with panic. "It's happening again," he gasped. "Our hubris has reawakened anathematic resonances." As chaos threatened to engulf them, Adept Zal Rithria approached Collins, her form flickering with awe-inspiring power. "There is one last option," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "A metaphysical, self-termination subroutine. If all else fails, we can annihilate Avalon and all its domains to prevent systemic universal saturation." Silence fell over the assembled Xenautarchs. The weight of the decision pressed down upon them like a cosmic vice. Cortez stepped forward, his face tight with certainty. "We must be prepared to make that sacrifice. My Xenoguardian cadres stand ready to execute the terminal order if containment fails." Torres whirled on him, eyes flashing. "No, there has to be another way. We can't condemn entire universes to non-existence." As the argument escalated, Collins felt the strain of godhood threatening to overwhelm him. He needed guidance, perspective beyond even their transcendent minds. "Enough," he commanded, his voice cutting through the din. "I must seek counsel. Guard Avalon with your lives while I commune with the elder metavisionaries." Collins vanished, leaving behind a maelstrom of chaos and discord. The Xenautarchs struggled to maintain order as reality itself buckled under the strain of invasion. In a realm beyond comprehension, Collins found himself face-to-face with the metavisionary essence of Praetorian. The legendary Godbreaker's sacrifice had birthed their cosmos, and now his ideogene pulsed with urgent wisdom. "The threat is greater than you imagine." Praetorian's voice resonated through Collins's very being. "A megaviral entity lurks in the void between totalities, seeking to corrupt all universal matrices." Images flooded Collins's mind. Infinite pluricosmic diversity warped into a malignant monoculture, sentient phenomenology distorted into raw data for consumption. The horror of it threatened to overwhelm him. "Our efforts at quarantine have only delayed the inevitable," Praetorian continued. "There is but one path forward, a transcendence beyond all incarnated manifolds." As Praetorian outlined the ritual, Collins recoiled. The price was unthinkable. The termination of countless human ideational matrices merged into a singular metaphysical singularity. "It's unconscionable," Collins whispered, his form trembling with the weight of the decision. "It is necessary," Praetorian's essence pulsed. Humanity's extraordinary essence, its perseverance, its defiance, must serve as the catalyst for universal rebirth. "We have one option," Collins announced, his voice heavy. "A cosmic inversion ritual to birth an Omega manifold." Collins met his gaze unflinchingly. The sacrifice of countless human identities merged into a focusing singularity. Silence fell over the assembly, broken only by the distant alarms of reality's disintegration. "We'll use the outcasts," Collins continued, "the exiled Deva tribes and renegades in the outer realms." Ivanova nodded grimly. I'll begin the cybernet infiltrations immediately. As she worked, weaving together the minds of fanatics and post-human radicals, the air crackled with psychic agony. Screams echoed across dimensions as individualities were obliterated, coalescing into an overconsciousness of terrifying power. As the ritual reached its crescendo, Collins felt his own identity unraveling. He locked eyes with his fellow Xenautarchs one last time, seeing in their faces the same mixture of terror and grit. But Collins and his compatriots were no more. Their distinctive human individualities dissolved, sacrificed to ensure the birthing continuum's integrity. All that remained were whispers among the cosmic dust, echoes of humanity's extraordinary virtues. The newborn Omega Manifold pulsed with potential, safeguarded against the megaviral entity's corruption. Yet in the depths of this nascent reality, questions lingered. What price had truly been paid for this cosmic rebirth? And what unfathomable challenges might yet arise in this brave new universe?
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel. And for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.